Hello, welcome again to one more episode of one more session. I feel weird to call it episode. One more session of Make It Myself, an independent artist forum. As you know, if you've been following what I've been doing, it has been 10 sessions, 10 episodes that we've done with 20 artists so far. But this session that I'm doing, I think is like a humongous one because it just has the most action packed musicians on board. And I feel extremely honored and privileged to have had, to actually present all four of them because they all just agreed as soon as I reached out, and it was so sweet. So let's start. And as they say, ladies first. So I'm going to invite Miss Sunita Bhuyan. Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
hi, Samini. Hi. Well, thank you. Pulling on in the
How
long
are you
haul.
doing? All good? All good?
By God's grace, like I said, pulling on in the long haul, and it's wonderful to
Okay.
be part of your Make It Myself. I like the name so much.
Thank you. So before we speak any further, let me invite all the other three, really amazing gentlemen who had so sweetly said, yeah, okay. And in fact, one of them I have been I hadn't been in touch for a while, but I think he just responded so quickly. And that's Kalyan Baruah.
Hey,
Hey,
hi.
Rockstar. How are you?
How are you doing?
I am
Long
very good,
time.
Kalyan.
Yeah.
Same here. I know. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on board.
No, man,
I'd
not
like
at all.
to
My pleasure. Yeah.
thank you so much. The next guest I'd like to invite is someone who's been very close to us with what we've been doing in the ghazal space, and of course we are extremely close to his wife, Nayab. But I'm I would invite him here because he is an amazing musician in his own right. Uh, Ojas, how are you?
Hi, Swamini ji. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
जी मत डालिए please.
नहीं नहीं वो तो of course you deserve it. Sunita ji, how are you? Hi, Kalyan bhai. How are you?
Very
Hey,
well,
hi.
very
Hi,
well, very
Ojas.
well.
So good to
Nice to see
connect
you.
with all of you. Same
Yeah,
here.
really
Nice with
is.
you too.
And our last but not at all the least guest who we have on board, and I'm really, really pleased. I have to give a little background here. I have known his mother much longer, and she's one of the most amazing musicians. But I think the warmth with which, our last guest really responds and engages, uh, it's an amazing pleasure to have him here. Rhys Sebastian, how are you, Rhys?
Hey, hi, Swami. Thanks for having me. And hey, guys, what's happening, man?
How are you,
Hi.
Ray?
Hi.
Good to see all of you.
So good to see you, Rhys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
likewise, man.
Reese, I want to first ask you before we start, how
Yeah.
old are you? Because, if your face was not screen, you sound like a little teenage boy.
Well, I'm not 18, that's for sure. But
Lesser than that.
I've just maybe just a few, uh, uh, maybe a decade and a half more than 18. That's I
Oh,
prefer to see myself as two 16-year-olds actually at the moment because I'm all over the place right now. So
that is so sweet. So, as I had mentioned when I reached out to each one of you, I think the whole idea of doing this session was, just to also kind of step back and say, what does Make It Myself as a forum about, right? And it was primarily to do two things. One is talk to people who've actually been able to make it themselves. And more importantly, get to hear from the horse's mouth what has been your journey? How have you gone about doing what you do? What are the challenges we are facing, especially with what's happened in 2020, which I'm sure all of us want to just erase as fast as we can. But to start with, as the title said, how does an instrumental musician come his or her art? And I think even before we go there, I'd like to ask each one of you, how did your journey begin? And Sunita, if you could, you know.
Yeah, when you say journey, it's like many years back. So the first time learned the 40 years, it's been more than 40 years since I've been playing the violin. And it started with
Wow.
my mother, a mother who in a small town in Dibrugarh in Assam, who forced me to learn the violin because she is a violinist. And it started all from there. And of course, I went to the entire classical training till I was 25 years old. So learned and also had the opportunity to learn from her guru, our guru, Pandit V.G. Jog, which was a huge blessing, a privilege. And till about my 18, 20 teens, I looked at it like a toy. You're playing because your mother's asked you to play. And violin is a very overwhelming instrument because it's not one
Right.
instrument, two instruments
Right.
together. And
Right.
for beginners, it's not a very inspiring instrument for beginners because it screeches and scratches. It takes a long time to get the sound out of it. And to balance the bow and the violin was very overwhelming. But once I started it was I was around 20. I started playing on stage, and when I did the management studies, actually, I realized the power of music to hold an audience much before the
Right.
bigger concerts I did. And that's when I
Right.
took it seriously, and that's when in the meantime, I pursued my master's in music. Thanks to my mother again. She said, you have to study music. Without
Right.
studying, it's difficult to interpret it in the modern world. So I studied my master's alongside my human resources, and somewhere both the worlds merged together.
Yeah.
And being an Assamese, when I played anywhere, I used to play a bit of Assamese folk here and there, and that's when the folk genre came into my life, and that's the story.
Right.
That's the story.
Kalyan,
Amazing.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. Kalyan, you are from Assam as well. And,
Yeah.
like I said, I've known you for 25 years. So what was your life before met you, in the sense? How did guitar come into your life? How did you make it a
Uh,
profession?
Actually, yeah. I mean, I grew up in Assam in various parts of Assam because my father was, transferring from one place to the other. So I was kind of growing up in very lonely places. So I had to find things to do. So in the beginning, it was painting. I would draw, I would paint, I would. And then suddenly one fine day, I decided, no, I want to play music. So I started playing tabla. Actually, my first instrument was tabla. I learned tabla
Okay.
because that was the
Wow.
instrument available that point of time, and that's what I thought was good to learn, and it was great. Actually, I learned tabla. And I played, and of course, after some time, I got bored of it because I was just playing the same note, and I was hearing other notes in my head. And then one day, I heard the sound of a guitar, somebody's house. I said, "Oh, this is what I want to play." And then
Okay.
I got into it, and I started playing, and then of course I started playing in college and stuff, and then of course then you learn a couple of songs, then you become a rock guitar player, and then hair
Right.
started growing, jeans became torn, and we started rock bands and played all over the place,
Right.
and then I realized in the meantime I was trying to do work. I mean, typical Assamese mentality is like you can't live off music. You cannot do music. That's not a career. So I did my other
That's an
things.
Indian mentality. It's not
Yeah,
just
yeah,
Assam.
it's generally like a small town or generally Indian mentality. So
Yeah.
I did my studies in anthropology. I did my studies. I'm studying for IAS to be a government officer. And
Wow.
then I realized I don't want to be a deputy commissioner playing guitar. So I went full time with guitar. So I decided and at that point of time, in Guwahati, we are beginning to have this private recording studio. So I started
Right.
working there, and then suddenly I realized I'm working more there than anywhere else. So I took it up as a
Right.
profession, and then eventually I got bored of that doing. Then I moved for a bigger landscape. Then I moved to Bombay, and that's where
And
my
are
journey
you
began.
right? Are you a self-taught learner, or did you
Oh,
actually go
absolutely,
and?
absolutely. I learned few things here and there, you know,
Okay.
but I never went to any traditional music school. My first music school was, in fact, I went to a school, and then one Sunday morning I went to a music school, and they put a guitar on my lap and put a steel bar. I started. And then I realized that that's a Hawaiian guitar school, then I realized, this is not what I want to play. So I kind of
Right.
didn't go back there again. And then I'm self-taught, yeah. But I did a lot of practice with my band. I used to have a lot of rock bands, and we were doing a lot of rock pop stuff in the Northeast. So we kind of little rock stars over there at that point of time.
Wow.
But I
That's
learned
amazing.
everything myself. I'm still learning. I mean, I'm not finished learning. I'm still kind of I'm yet to know loads of more stuff in this whole mystery of music. Yeah,
Of course,
Right.
it's like a
yeah.
You know,
never-ending process.
Kalyan
It's
has,
You
a
just keep
never-ending process.
learning.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, but Kalyan, I have seen you play, and if 25 years back I saw you play the way you did, I mean, I
Yeah.
really don't know how much more you can learn because I mean, you're a brilliant guitar player, so there's no doubt about that. Uh, Ojas, you know, I mean, I was going through your profile, and you know, it talks about the fact that you are the child prodigy, and I think you've also learned from Ustad Allah Khan, right?
No, no.
Oh, okay,
Basically, I'm from Akot, which is a small town
okay,
in Akola in Maharashtra. So
okay,
I'll briefly tell you how I came to Bombay. So my
right,
father and my mom, they used to take me. I, I was like hardly a couple of months old. So they used to take
okay,
me to our spiritual guru's satsang in Akot. And
okay.
as soon as the satsang used to get over, and tablas and all, they were kept at a side, and I used to crawl upon my knees and I used to, keep banging tablas
Oh,
after the celebration and after the satsang got over. So my
how sweet.
father spotted, and he just realized that, okay, he's a kid, he's just playing, he's just banging tablas. Anyway, it's okay. But I turned two and I played Tal Keherwa for the first time without learning from anybody. And my father
Wow.
noticed and he was surprised and he was like, he's playing Tal Keherwa and I must do something for him. And he just took me to a local teacher over there, and I took a basic knowledge of basic talas and all that on tabla. I turned 4 years old and I gave my first public performance at the
Amazing.
same place.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
later, my name was recorded in Limca Book of Records as the youngest tabla player. And here in Bombay,
Right.
very well-known Padma Shri Kalyanji Bhai, Anandji Bhai, the music directors, they
Right.
were starting with the show called Little Wonders of
Yes.
young
Yes.
upcoming talented
Right.
musicians, singers, and performers and
Right.
all that. So Sunidhi Chauhan and Shreya Ghoshal, Sadhna Sargam ji, Javed Ali
Right.
ji, they all were part of Little Wonders. So he suggested my father that this boy would do well in future. So he suggested that, why don't you all shift to Bombay, and his future is in Bombay. What will you do over there? You know, so my father was a doctor and he took this decision, and then we just all shifted to Bombay way back in 93. And then I needed a guru, a proper teacher to learn tablas.
Right.
So
Right.
Kalyanji Bhai's bosom friend, Shri Mridangraji, who is my guru. So I met him when I was 5, and he readily and willingly accepted as this disciple. And there is a tradition in Indian, classical music, that guru ties a ganda, a thread, to his
Yes.
disciple.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so that happened when I was just 5 years old, and since then
Oh,
I've been learning, and
amazing.
and that's how my journey started actually. Then I started playing in
Wow.
Little Wonders, and and then got an opportunity to play with so many stalwarts of Indian classical music like Parveen Sultana ji, uh, Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma ji, Pandit Hari Prasad Chaurasia ji, Dr. M.
Right.
Rajam ji. So I was fortunate to have Shri Kalyanji Bhai as my guide, my guru,
Right.
my
Right.
parents. Yeah, so it was a learning experience, of course.
It's
It's
amazing. I mean,
amazing. Yeah.
you know, we always look at people for what they are today, but we don't realize there's so much that's gone behind making them. There's so many people, you know, who've been a part of it. Reese, I mean, before you even talk about your journey, I really want to understand why a saxophone? You know, what got you attracted to that instrument?
I'm still asking myself that same question for like around 14 or 15 years now, to be very honest. And I think that's because I'm still not certain of, you know, I'm trying to figure out my identity as a musician still.
Okay.
But as far as the journey goes, Both my parents are musicians, and I can sum it up in two experiences. One is what my parents tell me is when I was around 2.5 years old. I was sleeping, and my mom heard me humming, and she said, "Bosco, Bosco, come quickly. He's humming Happy Birthday." And my dad was like, no, he's not. No, he's not. I'm like, he is. And apparently I was. So they decided to send me for the talent competition, the local talent competition at the church close by, to enter the
Okay.
to enter the under five
Okay.
category. So they put me on stage, and they saw me stand there, and they both went, "Come on, bow, Reese, bow, bow." And I went to the mic, and I went, "Bow, bow, bow, wow." And they both looked at each other, and they whisked me off stage very quietly, and they said, "I don't think he's ready right now." But
Wow.
uh, I kind of believed them that would be me, in a nutshell, really, not doing what they wanted me to do at the time and being very disobedient.
Okay.
But the second experience was when I was around 6 years old. My parents would practice in the living room, and there's a piano there, and after their pop rehearsals for wedding bands, there used to be this tune called Baji Baji Bambo. I don't know if you guys would remember that
Okay.
one.
Rap. Yes.
And for some strange reason, I went to the piano. It was such a catchy tune, with the chords and the keys kind of sounding very different to me. And it's the first tune I remember consciously trying to figure out on the piano, and I managed to figure it out. And they were all black keys, which for me was a scary thing because I thought, oh, black keys,
Right.
very intimidating, super intimidating. Let's not go there. But that was my experience of my first taste of musical experience, at least at home. And then, through the years, of course, being in school, taking part in talent competitions, playing the piano. Started playing the piano at the age of 5. But to be very honest, I was more interested in playing cricket and football down in the building. So I
I'm
honestly
sure.
only practiced like the day before my exams or the day before going for my class, for my piano class. And every
Okay.
time before I'd start my piano class, I'd ask my teacher, "Hey, can you play that part? I kind of forgot it. Rather, I was having difficulty doing it." So she'd play it
Right.
for me, and I'd try and use my ears to pick up from there. And then I kind of realized over time that I had very good ears,
Hmm.
but I would consistently fail at tempo in my classical exams because I'd be rushing all my pieces. I'd be playing it right, but I'll be rushing it because that's what I kind of got, the adrenaline and sort of playing by ear.
Right.
But
Right.
uh, I think those are the fondest memories of me, and then the kind of foundations that I have as a kid growing up, and then through college, playing with college bands, and it's been quite a ride of the last 12 years. So, and like Kalyan and Ojas both mentioned, it's such an insane process because the
Yeah.
more
Right.
the more you the more you think in the older you grow, I think the less you feel you do know, and there's so much more to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always
Yeah, yeah, and I
more.
and I
More.
remember. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, it's a please continue.
No, I remember, and one of the first times I heard a really Kathak brass section was at NH7 2014, when I think Kalyan ji was playing with
Okay.
Papon.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that would be the
Kalyan.
set. Yeah.
G
Yeah.
G is for like the growth, Kalyan. Um, and and you had Rao and
I
Robin, I
don't.
think, on that gig, playing
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
just the two of them playing,
Just
and
two
my
of
God,
them.
I also was in complete awe of the kind of music director role that Mr. Kalyan took, and I think it was around that time when I realized also um, the reason why I'm not so sure why I play the sax, maybe, or
Yeah.
I'm very interested in everything else, like the bass guitar, especially. I kind of love that more than the sax.
Yeah.
Is because I would like to maybe be um, a musician that can see the bigger picture and not just the instrument there. Of course, there are a lot of
Right.
musicians was so good and proficient at their instrument and can see the bigger picture. But that's not me, and I still feel like I'm finding my feet. So I still don't know, to answer your question, why the sax.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's so amazing that each one of you have a very different story, but one thing that's common is music has become your bread and butter, but it's something that you love to do. So like they say, if you love what you're doing, it's not a job. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
the bigger challenge is when you've got to think of your bread and butter if music is something that you're doing. How has that process been? Has it been easy? Have you had stories the way Bollywood actors have had, where they've slept in, footpaths and rail tracks or whatever? I mean, it'd be amazing to hear what has been that part of the journey. Uh, you know, anyone can start.
Let me start.
Okay, Kalyan bhai.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, fortunately, I mean, when I started mid 90s and when I shifted to Bombay, I was already I had loads of experience in the studio recording business, playing in the studio. So for me, when I came to Bombay, I was not so keen on to say make money out of music. I didn't think of it as such. I thought, let me go to Bombay, let me go to a bigger landscape, meet more people, rather than playing with the same people and in kind of predicting what you're going to do. It became like a boring
Right.
thing for me, knowing what you're going to do. So I
Yeah.
wanted to know the more unknown. Then, of course, as you come and we shift to a city like Bombay, you need to earn your bread and butter. You need to survive. And for survival, yes, then I would do a lot of live gigs. And then that was the time in the mid 90s we did. I mean, Rhys would know. I mean, his mom and we played together like a whole lot of music with sound advice and different outfits and yeah. So so that was the time when we all played live. We played live in different venues, and we kind of, and we would spend more money than what you earned that night. I mean, and but that was fun, and there was a lot of learning experience, and you would see the reaction of people, and slowly, then you shift. You get. I mean, I kind of moved more towards advertisement, and started playing a lot of ad films and jingles because that is what kind of was more interesting at that point of time. And eventually, I
But
shifted
tell
to,
me
of course,
something.
like everybody
Uh,
went to like play for films.
yeah.
Yes, you were saying something?
But tell me something, Kalyan. I mean, how
Yeah,
easy was
I'm
it for you to get
breaking up.
assignments? I mean, uh, sorry. Yeah, can you hear me?
Uh, yeah, I can. Yeah,
Yeah,
now I can.
yeah. So
Yes,
I was
yes.
asking. Yeah, I was asking. How easy was it for you to get different assignments or different projects or different opportunities? I mean, was it your work that like one job kind of gave you a chance to
Let
get the next?
right.
Or
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
see, the thing
go
is
ahead.
that like I may have been one of the lucky ones. I don't know how things work now, but it's just like when I played, I sounded completely unique. I mean, no, none of the musicians that point of time over here sounded like me. It's because maybe I didn't have a huge like a spectrum of knowledge or playability. I knew few things to play, but I would play them well to the heart. And for me, playing music was more not just to show, but it's more of an expression of things because I'm like a shy. I'm not a very I'm not a I'm a, quite an introvert guy, so I don't say much. But I like to play
Yeah,
with music. So maybe that sounded different to people, rather than what's happening. So I used to get calls like I would do one job, and that job would lead me to another job. So, and word of
right,
mouth, and the other person would call me. So then you play for more people, then you have bigger networks, or you would do it. I mean, maybe I was one of the lucky ones. So, and that
right,
time, of course, as a
right.
guitar player, also, you could count how
Mm.
many guitar players in town. Mid
Wow.
That is
90s.
true. Yeah,
You could
yeah.
count,
No,
like, who's playing what.
but yeah, yeah. But having said that, Kalyan, I think definitely it was about the way you came, did the job, and went, and it was. I mean, it was. I remember because I was privy to the kind of work
Yeah.
that you were doing. But tell me,
It was.
Ojas, for someone, sorry, go ahead, Kalyan, go ahead.
No, I mean, definitely. You see, I mean, for me, for anybody coming from a town like town from Assam, Guwahati, it's coming to a big city. I mean, Bombay is like huge, huge thing compared to where you come from. So obviously, in
Yeah,
the beginning, you are intimidated by things. You're afraid of things. But then that's way in a way that's good because that's what drives you to do work hard
that's what drives
and
you.
play better.
Yeah,
I mean, I would play a job and go back home. I would practice the whole night because I don't know what's going to be, what I would expect to be playing next day.
mm.
So that makes you work
Yeah.
hard. I mean, that's yeah. Sorry, yes, go.
That's amazing.
Wonderful.
No, that's amazing, Kalyan. I mean,
Yeah,
that is the takeaway that I wanted from a session like this. But
right.
Ojas, you had. I mean, obviously, you've had the talent, no doubt. You were prodigy, and at the same time, when you started your journey, in spite of all the accolades and everything, you obviously made sure that you were, gaining the knowledge and the experience from the right people. But when it
Right.
came to actually, commercializing all of that talent, how easy was that?
Swamiji ji, the thing was, firstly, I never realized that my passion, switched into a full-time profession in playing tabla. The other thing is, when I started learning from my guru, Mridang Rajji, he told me very simple thing that if you want to take this as a profession, that time I was too small, I never understood what he was trying to say, but I just started learning whatever he told me. I just
Hmm.
started, practicing at home, going to him every second day, every alternate days. So he told me one very important thing that, just strike my mind. He just told me that if you want to become a tabla player, don't just stick to a classical thing. I mean, if
Okay.
you want to become
Wow.
something in life, you must know how to play ghazals. You must know how to play for uh, a Bollywood music. You must know how to
Hmm.
play for a jazz, for blues, for a rock genre, or for anything, for Carnatic, Indian Carnatic music.
That's amazing.
So
Okay.
that really helped me a lot, and then I started, listening to all these genres of music, and I was so fond of playing for ghazals. Like
Hmm.
my guru itself introduced me to Hariharan ji, to
Right.
to so many other great stalwarts of ghazals, and of course classical as well. So that really helped me, and then I realized one thing by performing at such a young age. Kalyanji Bhai, the music director, he said that you have to understand the nerve of an audience. You need to
Right.
know what they want, and you have to give them.
Yeah. You have to
It's
be a
not,
performer.
you have to
Yeah.
be a performer. It's not just that, okay, you
Right.
come on stage, play, and then just leave. So
Correct.
when I was a kid, when I started playing in Little Wonders, I used to, talk briefly about what tabla is. Tabla is lay, tabla is rhythm. The
Hmm.
same way we are, we have a specific, we work in one kind of a pace. Same way,
Hmm.
tabla has
Hmm.
that pace, like a heartbeat. So tabla is a
Great.
heartbeat.
Absolutely.
So
Wow. Wow.
all these small things, I used to talk, I used to learn so much. I never realized it, but one fine day I just thought that this really helped me a lot, and you know it's, again,
That's
I'm saying
amazing.
it's a learning experience, and this is never going to end. So we just keep on
Yeah.
learning and
Right.
experiencing things from not just our
Yeah.
gurus or people who have guided us, but everybody from, of course,
Of course.
Sunita ji, from so many great musicians.
Yeah, and I think every show you do is a new experience, right? I mean, you learn,
Of
and
course.
yeah, and for someone
Totally.
like you, especially a tabla player who is accompanying other musicians, you got to be in sync with their temperament, with their ability to do
Absolutely.
something which is very impromptu, but stay
Absolutely.
on the.
So
Yeah, that's
today,
amazing.
for an example, today, if I get a chance to play with Sunita ji, I have to understand what nature she has and what kind of
Correct.
aesthetic sense she plays in, and her nature of playing, her gharana from which she belongs to, right? and I
Right.
can't overpower her while playing.
Right.
I need to
Right.
understand
Right.
the basic nature of her music. And second
Right.
day, if I'm playing with Rhys, I need to know what
Right.
he's going to play, and I mean,
Right.
and then I get opportunities to play solo tabla solo as well. So that is
Right.
completely a different thing. That I have
Right.
to present whatever I have learned and whatever my thought process behind those
Right.
compositions, and there are so much there's so much to think and then play. But when it comes
Right.
to accompaniment, you just have to be very very focused, and it's like supporting the main artists.
Correct. I think the most amazing advice or input you got was from your guru, who opened up your musical
Absolutely.
thinking. Yeah, I think that's very rare. I mean, you hardly hear that, especially with classical gurus or gurus who are teaching an instrument that is generally considered to be traditional.
Right.
So yeah, it's amazing to have got those kind of inputs. Reese, I
That
have a
really
question
helped.
for
Yeah.
you. Right. So, Reese, I want to ask you this. I mean, today we heard about, I mean, like I have two kids. I have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old, and they're like so busy doing their own thing, whether it's PS4s or Instagramming and all that kind of nonsense. Uh, as a parent, you're constantly told that music is what it helps you even in your studies. I think when you were a child, possibly you got the chance to experience that, right? Or were you also distracted with these kind of things?
Um, I think no. I think the kind of distractions I had back then was a little different. I think the fact that there were a lot more kids around that we could go and play, and the fact that both
Right,
my parents were working musicians and my dad would do his pest control business in the day meant that I had a free hand in the house, and there was no one to watch me. So I was just away from my studies, and I did everything but study. I wanted to play. Figured out how to get the TV working again when my dad would hide the remote, and I became very resourceful at a very young age. Um, and I think when it came down to studying, though, just before my exams, of course, my mom would tune into some classical music, um, just classical music, Western classical music mostly at the time. We used to have like a few CDs and a VCR player, I think. Um, and that's what I would listen to, just because it was just a bit calming, I think, at the time.
mm,
And I think once we got into college, which was in 2004, that's when things started to change a little bit. The mobile phones started coming in, but not as much as the last 5 or 6 years or so. I think gaming parlors were a thing back then in 2000.
yeah,
So I'll be running off to play Counter Strike.
yeah,
But I think that phase kind of passed, and I think everything's so easy now. It's not as
right,
ergonomic, or efficient as it was back then, because we'd have to go to Santa Cruz to play or go to car to play with friends, and now you can play on your phone, on your laptop, and
right,
and the internet
right.
connection is mind blowing. So it's a lot different today. Yeah, but that's
But how
basically
was
it in a nutshell.
right? But so you went through the childhood journey, but you decided to become a musician like your parents. How was the experience of actually beginning to look at your income coming out of something which you're still saying you're trying to figure out why you're doing it? Like being a saxophonist, or and
Mhm.
as is that the only instrument that you actually play when it comes to doing a commercial show, or do you play other instruments as well?
Well, I'm trying to open myself up to keeping it very open. In fact, the one thing I've kind of learned over time is that the only person who can say no is me, honestly. And if I say
Right,
no, then that's the end of the journey for me right there. So I'm
right,
never really going to say, this is something that I can possibly or can't possibly do. But for me, the next time I get on stage, or maybe like five gigs from now with my particular band, I want to play bass on stage with the bassist and with the drummers. So I want to have like three basses on stage playing a song, and and there's nothing to kind of stop anyone from doing something like that. Um, but sorry, I kind of tend to detract. What was your question? Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of mixed it up, so it must have happened. But I was just very curious to know how was your experience of actually, bringing in the income with
Sorry,
as
income.
a musician. Yeah,
So my mom helped me out a lot with that. Every gig that I do, she makes sure she'd save it all. And then as I grew older, she told me, you know what, break your income down, save 30%, goes straight into a fixed deposit. You don't look at it. 30% is for your house right now and your expenses, and 30% is for your music and for your work, to invest in your work. So you keep doing that and just don't look at the 30% over there, really. So I began to do that, and I didn't really think about it that much. Also, I was a very frugal kid growing up. I mean, I wanted the latest phone, Nokia phone at the time and all, but but more than that, honestly, I wouldn't step out that much. So I didn't spend quite as much. But my true learning for income management really started when I started living alone 8 years ago, paying off a house loan and kind of just keeping the neck above water, really, for most part of it. And that's been the most humbling part of the journey, really. Um,
right,
but but during that time, I kind of decided to focus more my energies in terms of my income going towards my house, really, that I had to
right,
pay for, and just everyday living.
right,
And I hadn't invested so much in my music, really, and that's what I realized very late on. Which is what I've done this year, which is so strange because in 2020, when everything kind of just shut shop, I decided to move back in with my mom, and
okay,
I made all these. I made the necessary purchases that I needed to make that I couldn't do before. So I didn't really handle my finances well, I suppose, to an extent. But it's all part and parcel of the game and sort of learning.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
you could probably still hear me, but
yes,
uh,
yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. Sorry. Yes. So
No sweat.
yeah. And that's about it, really. And not spending as much out when I don't need to. But I think during my 20s, I couldn't really contain it. I had to spend here, I had to spend there. But
Yeah,
once I got into my 30s, or my second
yeah.
16s, I kind of started to tone it down a little bit, and just take it one day at a time now.
But
Right.
that's no problem with that, Reese. We are all good at
Mm.
it. We are all good at spending it. If
Yeah.
musicians, if you had been so well planned in life, I
I
mean,
know,
music
right?
is such thing that you don't think. You feel like doing it, you do. You play, you feel like playing that note. Your heart tells you to play, you play. Likewise,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
want to buy something, you buy. I mean, there's no
that's
problem
true.
with it.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I made over 35 purchases on Amazon from March onwards till date,
Wow.
Whatever, whatever makes keeps your music going, man.
and it really has. It has helped.
Yeah,
That's
Whatever
great.
meaningful for the moment is what one does. And if being artists, we don't do this, who else will do it, right?
yeah.
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 So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sunita, tell me this. Violin is an instrument that tends to. I mean, they always call it. It's one of the toughest instruments to learn, and I have been lucky to actually watch you in person. You know how you've been able to bring the music, and I mean the biggest example was when you came and performed in our office where. You perform in front of a bunch of people who normally wouldn't react to anything, and you got everybody involved. So how has your journey been to actually create a sustainable kind of model for yourself? Did you really need to depend on a side career, or just being a violinist did the job? What was your experience there?
Well, like most other musicians' journeys, where, like Kalyan said, the recordings and the stuff, like everyone in Assam knows how hard Kalyan has worked and how good he is at what he does. Yet like he said, he played live every night and, recordings. And so the whole recording kind of life I could never lead. And I still have never, ever, because I was an HR professional. So
Right.
at 25 years of age, I took my first HR job, and leadership and learning was my key area, and the music was part of my it was like a religion. So I always had the
Right.
violin. So when I started introducing the music in the corporate world, it was like starting things on a clean slate. So
Right.
the disadvantage of a violin didn't come in till I actually started performing mainstream, whereas I realized that violin was still, I'm talking about 20 years back, it's still looked about as an accompanying instrument. Only you had Yanni's big violinist playing a bit of solo and moving away. And that's the myth I wanted to break. I said, Geetam Vaidyam Tatha Nrittam. The scriptures have said that song, dance, and instrument make the world of music. So how can only song get the priority on stage? How can only vocals be the take the entire limelight? So I always felt that the instrument has to speak, the instrument has to communicate, the instrument has to make a message, the instrument has to innovate. Like Rhys just said, you've got to say yes to everything. Yes, I was trained in classical, but I wanted to ensure that the violin could also communicate and not just be a classical instrument, but also can make people dance, can make people
Right.
sing along with you. So that was a personal mission I had, because growing up, I used to be invited to perform in Assam at 6:37 in the big Bihu shows. And they used to tell, but Sunita Baido, you are a classical violinist. So we'll give you to play at 6:37, meaning they want to tell me that you can't entertain. So why will we give you to play at
Mhm.
10 instead? So the idea that was a big challenge for me, and I thought, no, that myth has to be broken. The violin instrument can also play at 12 in the night in a full bihu pandal of thousands of people and yet make people dance. And I must owe these thanks to Gauri Advatkar of Times Music and Atul Churamani, who said that the way you played the bihu a bit amidst your classical concert, why didn't you record? And
Mhm.
and I left my corporate job of many years in 2012 to do music full
Mhm.
time. But till then,
Okay.
I never went out into the market. I didn't go to market to do shows. All the shows that I did, so many, was always in the corporate world. So that became my main source of music. And later on, when I gave up my corporate job, that became the main source of my earning my revenue through those shows, because every show I did for the corporate had a theme, had a message, and I started getting in the element of Bihu in it. And because I had traveled so much with my job, I went to Scotland and UK and the US a lot. I learned a lot from those areas. So when people went to do sightseeing, because I had the passion of violin, I went to the Scottish Highlands to learn about how Scottish music is. And that's where I found a new area of work. And that's what I incorporated in the violin. So I feel for musicians, some USP has to be there in their offering, whether the
Yeah.
instrument, and some myths you have to break. You have to break a few myths to be able to be on stage and make that difference. So as far as commercializing, because I never could have the time to go to certain mainstream events because I was always in the corporate world. But as far as commercializing, I would say it was from that network more than the mainstream network. Yes, I did a few festivals here and there. Today, I get invited to quite a few of these mainstream festivals, headlining there. But earlier, it was my HR that funded the expense of being a musician. You need the right violin, you need the right you need the right instruments, the right gadgets to be able to become a musician. But definitely, the USP was breaking the myth and communicating with your instrument. And the second thing was getting the folk element in, because no
Yeah.
one in Assam ever played bihu on the violin. So I think that that gives you an edge to break into a stage. The rest is, of course, how good your form is, how much you practice, and how well
Right.
you're going to connect with the audience. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Wonderful.
yeah, it was. When I heard Kalyan, when I hear you, I think one thing which is very common in both of what you said is the uniqueness is what keeps you going, and that is something you got to keep honing and keep kind of adding to it. Uh, it never
Yeah,
stops, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah.
yeah,
There are,
It,
there
it,
but
it,
Sorry.
it never, it never. Sorry to interrupt, Kamal. And like Reese just said that, yes, I went on stage being a classical violinist and said I'm going to play a bit of bihu. But when people asked me to say, "Kya आप Bollywood गाना बजा सकते हैं?" I said, "Of course I can play, because it's a universal 7 notes." There were more myths to be broken there, because Bollywood में भी सात
Absolutely.
सुर है, jazz में भी सात सुर है. So saying no to a genre of music is the biggest biggest mistake that a musician does. When you're up on stage, all the notes are equal. That is your worship. That's your place of, that's your temple. You can play any music and not be branded in a particular genre, because there is no class or mass in music. And that faith is what keeps a lot of us musicians going. But we said, never say no. Only I can say no to offer that comes to me. Sorry, I interrupted you, Somini.
No, 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 that's fine. I was just,
On a roll over
I'm
there.
just, yeah, I know. But I think, I mean, you still see a lot of challenges of artists. Like, I think Kalyan, you came from Assam and, you set up base in Mumbai. Uh,
Yeah.
in the platform that I run with Hangama, we've met so many artists who have all come from other parts of the country. Most of them, about 80% of them want to get into Bollywood. That was at least 2 years back. In the last 3 years, I mean, if you just leave 2020, in the last 3 years, Bollywood has also been going through its own changes in the music space. It's not been really creating that kind of a shake-up, which has resulted a lot of, music obviously has to sustain, and that's where I think the independent scene is getting momentum. But
Yeah.
how do you think today's artists can survive and make it? I mean, even with the pandemic, what has been your situation, the pandemic, and what do you think new talent who are trying to make it can do?
Uh, See, I mean, the most important thing over here that we do music. It's a music is not something that it's something that you feel in your heart. You got to be passionate about it, and when you are passionate about music, when you express yourself truly, that's music. And when you do that really truly, it touches somebody else's heart. And then somebody else's would like your playing or your skill, your expression, and then that's when the commercialization part comes. Like if I go and play a certain recording session, and if the person likes what I do for that song, I'm getting
No
the next
different from
job. I mean, I'm
right
going to get
here.
a call for the
It has
next
to be
job.
like
That's how
that.
my business part of the thing,
Right.
increases. But when every time you may get a different job or you may get an additional job, but behind all that is music. Even if I'm playing
Right,
a Bollywood song, or even if I'm playing a song that I don't like to play, I'm playing to the best of my heart, and to the satisfaction of the person who composed that song. For it is his
right,
baby. If I'm going for a session, it's his baby, and then you're going to be able to give him what that person wants to hear. I mean, you go and make that song beautiful. That's your job, and that's how it leads you to another job, and that it leads you to the next job. That's how you kind of make a business out of it. Out behind that
right.
whole business is, like, at the end of the day, it's music. Now today I see a lot of YouTubers, a lot of people doing things, a lot of this thing, but sometimes I see that people are forgetting the fact that it's not just being in YouTube. You got to do what is good, what comes out of your heart. It's not because you see your friend doing a song on YouTube, doing a copy of a certain famous song, that doesn't make you a, doesn't I don't think that's like really, like, it makes you a different person or a unique person. You got to be able to
Yeah,
express what you feel about it. So
yeah,
I mean, as long as there's talent and people do honesty, honesty is one very important thing over here. You just don't do for the sake of like doing it. You do it because you believe in it. And then I think it
right,
touches everybody's heart, and
Very
then you
true.
become successful it. I mean, you got to have that passion, that honesty, that thing in you, that, and among like 100, maybe out of 10, those social media things that I get to see, like maybe out of that 10 I can count, and they will survive. And that's what always happens. There are 100
right.
singers, 100 musicians, but out of 100, 10 will survive, or 10 will be doing business in for the sake of saying the word business, because
Right.
they're passionate about it. Their music touches somebody else's heart. And in,
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
commercial world,
Yeah.
if it touches my client's heart, I'm getting another job. So
Right.
at the end of the
Absolutely.
day,
Right.
it's music. It's music. It has to be. I mean, definitely we are going through a change now. We are kind of. I mean, we are learning how to cope up with this situation of being in
How was
social
the last
media, being in.
time you had to play? man. How has the last 7 months been for you? I mean, especially, I
Well,
mean, all of that,
I last 7 months I learned a lot of new recipes. Okay, the food that I never tried to cook before, so I learned how to cook a lot of new things. Thanks to a lot of my friends, and then I know, and also how to clean the house. That is like the fun part of it. But other thing is, I did a lot of studies. I mean, the 7 months, I never studied like anything. I was like, studying in the sense like researching on music, things that I never got time to learn earlier. I always thought I would
right,
learn a certain song, or certain scale or something I practice. So I did a lot of practice, a lot of experimenting with my guitar tone, checking out sounds. But then, unfortunately, I'm playing for the lizards and cobwebs. So every night I have an amazing gig. I played for the lizard. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the. So, but yeah, it is kind of sort of. This is a time when you go deep within yourself and think and see what you want to do in life. I mean, it's sort of like
right,
taking a forced vacation and a kind of sort of introspection. Looking within yourself and finding out ways and finding. I started trying to paint, by the way. Started
Wow.
collecting some
right,
paint and like because that was my first passion anyway. I wanted to always be an
Oh,
artist, like a painter. So
right,
then I started doing some oil painting and some, like different kind of stuff and playing different guitars and checking out scales and cooking,
yeah.
cleaning. That's how. But also commercially, fortunately, like I have had this home setup for years. Like I'm one of the first guys in Bombay where I was recording guitars from home. I have
Wow.
been doing it for last like about more than 15 years that I have set up my home
Wow.
studio. I've been recording from home, so I've always
right,
doing it. And then fortunately during these times also I had quite a few ad films I did from home. A lot of film
right,
songs also I done. Quite a few projects I've done, which is already out now.
right,
So it
right,
was not so fast, but still every month I was doing something and few like album productions and I mean commercial
right.
part of the music business. I was doing that. Yeah,
What,
I was
yeah.
lucky.
What about you, Ojas? I mean, a large part of your work
So,
was in collaboration with other artists. So,
yeah.
how has that impacted your
Yeah.
life?
But thanks to this lockdown, I really, it helped me to develop my interest towards technology. I was never ever keen to have my own setup at home and record from home, but this really helped me. So I had to. And there were a couple of projects which were coming my way, and I just had to you know get some microphones and have my own small setup for tablas. So that really helped me. And finally, I did a small setup. I tried to develop my own uh,
You can put
tonal
off on it,
quality
okay?
for my tabla.
Right,
Then I had some projects. Then I recently released a single which I had already recorded a couple of months back,
right.
and that was a surprise to my wife on the day of the wedding. So,
Okay.
so
How
that
sweet.
I worked on that, and then there are other things which are coming up.
They can
I'm
clear it.
working
I can
for
have
my
it from the kitchen. Very lage.
I'm working out for my solo projects.
Right,
So yeah, things had really helped me, and I'm focusing on my practice sessions, things which I never
right,
got to experience and never got to work on. I'm trying to
Yeah,
work on those things. And many people, many youngsters, tabla players, and other percussion players, they used to come and meet me after the show and ask me whether I teach or take online sessions or like that. So I never got chance to take an online session and teach
right,
anybody or guide anybody. So this way it
right,
really helped me to reach out to so many youngsters, young musicians who would really would they wanted to learn and they wanted to have a basic knowledge of tabla, solos, and accompaniments and other genres. So,
right.
I'm really, thankful to Almighty that I've got some good tabla players who would, so
Right.
they've started taking sessions from me now online. So
Nice.
these are
that's
some
amazing.
development
Yeah.
which has happened.
Do you think you're
Right.
gonna stick around with teaching online once the when things start to open up? Is it something that
See,
you're considering
online,
doing?
n- not much into that, because
Hmm.
learning person to person, you know, that is something very very important for any kind of musician, rather than
Yeah.
getting into an online session. That
Hmm.
I still tell
Mm.
all other tabla players or any other
Yeah,
percussion or any other musician, which is
that's true.
what I can guide is some technicalities in playing.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
it. But if I want to convey something which I have, and they it lacks in them, so I have to sit with them personally, not
Hmm.
digitally.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those things are not possible digitally.
I I suppose you want to build a rapport with your student, and there's only so much you can do when you're doing it online, right? But
Yeah.
if the time comes,
The,
then at least for me, if I'm learning from someone, I'd love to know more about the stories about how
Yeah.
you managed to get through this gig, or what's your experience, because your music is often told through your experiences.
absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
kind of get that. But I was very intrigued because you were giving lessons online, and
Yeah.
that's quite amazing though. Yep.
I quite.
Yeah, that's,
Right.
but even in a way
Sorry.
it's a learning process for me, because everything is getting revised. I have
Mm.
my own revision if I'm
Ah,
giving in online sessions.
yeah, yeah.
Of
I
course.
mean,
Yeah.
for as far as sorry, I'm cutting in.
Please,
Right.
please.
As
Go
far
ahead.
as the online like teaching is concerned, that's what I totally agree with Reese. It's like, I mean, I when I get a question like, "Do you teach or would you teach?" I say like, "I can teach you, but what do you want to know? I can. There are thousands of guitar
Mm,
lessons on everywhere where you can learn theory or something. If you want to come to me, or if I would like to go to learn from somebody else, I would like to know the experience behind
yeah.
Right.
that music. I mean,
And there has to be a basic,
yeah,
there is basic niceties of that instrument
right,
where you can't learn online.
Hmm.
exactly. I
You
know
can
to.
just guide them, of course,
I
people
know
who
to
have
be,
already learned.
yeah, need to be with a person to know, to understand what made that person him, like
Right.
if I want
Right.
to learn about, like, if somebody wants to learn from me, that I
Hmm.
don't want to, I can teach you about theory, whatever I know, which I don't know much anyway. So I'll teach you,
Yeah.
but I will teach you how to be a musician, how to think
Yeah.
like a musician. That's something,
That's
I
that's
think
that's
Yeah.
that's
that's,
some,
that's very true, because I think in online you can teach, you cannot teach the technicality of certain instruments. For example,
Absolutely.
Reese cannot teach how hard he has to, the energy he needs to, for different notes that he plays, or the tabla technique or the guitar technique. Like for example, I can't teach how the fingers will move so intricately on the violin. I can say you need to maintain a distance and an angle of 90 degrees to play on the bridge. But what one can teach during in online is about music, about creating harmonies and melodies. So certain elements of music one can teach very
yeah,
easily virtually, and certain elements of the technicalities and the emotion and the ethos that Kalyan is talking about, that has to be
Yeah.
live, because the energy that the
Absolutely.
guru and the mentor passes physically, the energy
Mhm.
is so powerful that remains with the student. And
Yeah.
when you're all discussing about virtual, for an artist like me, it was the biggest challenge, because I have nothing on digitally. I was very complacent about digital. I always told my young musician son, Rhys knows Ron, right? He plays the
Yeah.
piano. That I don't need to have 1 million followers on Instagram, because I'm anyway playing all across the world. I am invited to play physically with the violin and break a few myths on stage. And I always was
Yeah.
very complacent, almost conceited about the fact
Right.
that I did not ride the digital wave. But with the lockdown, I had to succumb. I had to give in. I had to open an Instagram account, and I had to create a home studio, kind of a makeshift thing at home, and learn
Yeah.
about sound card, mixer, microphone,
Yeah.
headphones. It was the biggest learning for me, that
Correct.
never be complacent of your offering is one big lesson I learned. And
Yeah.
Absolutely.
all
Absolutely.
that I'm doing here, I'm going to those same countries by God's grace, playing for the same people, but digitally, which is so different. So, we have to keep up with the times. And I never did that for the last 10 years. I have only one video recording and no Instagram account till March, till March
Wow.
2020. I never had that.
Yeah.
But
Sunita,
yeah.
you're opening Instagram like a social media account. I'm in fact closing them. I I removed myself out of Facebook
Yeah.
because it was so overloaded with people playing that I don't want to hear right now. I'm not in a
Correct.
mood because everyone's like jamming, everyone's like doing things. So I became like, in fact, I got out of social media. By the way,
Yeah.
I walked into a guitar shop the other day, asked him like certain things about what kind of business he's doing with the guitars. He said, you know what? He said the highest selling thing is the sound card now
Yeah,
in
exactly.
guitars.
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
God, the sound card.
Microphone,
Because
sound card,
yeah,
Capture
everything,
it
whatever
cards.
is
is
a
Yeah.
needed.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the highest selling thing right now. You don't get. I was trying to get a certain thing for a friend of mine. I was not getting that. It's not available.
That's
Sold out.
amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Sound card,
in a way it's
those
good that
cameras,
yeah. In a way it's
The
good that
LED lights for the
yeah,
video.
lights. In
LED
fact,
lights.
I was joking about like people. I was telling my friends like some single friends like KK. I was telling you like stop buying gear and stuff. Let's turn your studio into like let's get some lights and let's get some video
Yeah.
cameras and stuff. And eventually that's what's
Right.
happening. In fact, I am buying lights and I'm buying like stands just to which I
Yeah.
never thought I
That's
Oh,
would do.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we've
but
all done that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but at
But
the end of
but
the
tell
day,
me, I
sorry.
mean, sorry, we don't know how long this is going to continue. We don't know how long the event. I mean, I've been seeing on LinkedIn literally every second event person saying looking for a job.
Yeah.
Uh, what's the game plan for someone like, I mean, for people like you, who've had a good run so far, and now you've got to literally relearn the whole method. And the instrumental musician has always been someone who either has been dependent on, some other project, or not all of you. I mean, you guys have been able to do shows on your own steam, but what about the newcomers, or what about people who are still trying to break their collaborative efforts? What are your thoughts on that,
Yeah, I mean,
Reese?
see,
Let's
sorry.
yeah, sorry.
Oh,
No, Reese, you can go ahead.
No,
oh
no,
let,
go
let,
ahead,
let,
go ahead, go ahead.
let Kalyan kick this one off. Yes.
No, the thing is, see, like everything else, like there's always good and bad. I mean, it's like I always think of it like there'll be 100. You go to a field, you pick up 100 fruit out of 100, like maybe 10 fruit will be usable or good. Maybe they'll be rotten. Rest of them. So in the whole thing, it's good that whole lot of people are coming into this social media thing. A lot of people are getting exposure, which is not would have been not possible earlier. We would have not known about so many people, not just because of the pandemic. Otherwise, also this entire social
Yeah.
media has brought everybody out. So it is easier for somebody else to well, like easily spot a good talent. So out of
Hmm.
good talent, in a futuristic point of view, like what's going to happen tomorrow, out of them, some of it will stay. The good ones will stay. Out of
Right.
100, 10 of them will stay and they will do something. And it's going to go on like this. I mean, this is the way always things have been. Every time there's a new
Yeah.
way of doing things, there will be 1,000 people doing out of 1,000, 10 good ones will stay and they will
Yeah.
continue to grow. And even this is,
Yeah.
we are going
Right.
to get out of it. I mean, we are musicians. As far as a guitar player, me as a guitar player, I know that there'll be songs who would require me. I would be
Yeah.
asked
Right.
to play a certain song because thankfully we do music which is like even in death, in birth, where any occasion of life, people need music.
Yeah.
So we're
Absolutely.
Yeah.
going to be playing, we're going to be recording this. People are going to listen to songs at all times, always, whether you are happy or you have a pandemic. And maybe
Hmm.
the volume of the work will go less or the budget will be less, but there will be work. We should not like think
Right.
this is the end of the
Right.
road. No, it will go on. Maybe we're not going to have live shows like how we used to be traveling. By this time we wouldn't have had time to even talk to anybody. We've been so
Right.
busy
Yeah.
traveling. But yeah, not
Yeah.
busy, so fine. But then there are other avenues. We are learning more things. We are learning how to talk to you through all these, different stuff.
Right. Right.
So it is a new way of doing things, and it'll sustain. I mean, everything has a. It's just a test of things, or it's test of your own endurance and patience.
Patience,
If you're
absolutely.
patient, if you're patient enough, you'll get through it. You'll go to the other side. You'll start again. Something else will happen. It's always been like this, and time moves in like different sort of cycles,
That's
and you just come to you go from one cycle to
beautifully
the other.
said,
I
Kalyan.
mean that's my
Yeah.
maybe a little too philosophical,
Well,
but that's the way I think.
No, that's
it's true.
absolutely
It's
correct.
true.
Yeah,
It's
That's
true.
true.
Yeah.
Very, very,
But
very
Yeah.
true.
things are opening up
yeah,
slowly, and
Right.
yes,
but not live concerts though. But they, some people have started doing online
right.
live digital
Right.
concerts, and so
Right.
that way things have started opening up. We have started going to the studios, and but so
Yeah.
going to the studios is something which will never stop, or the live
Right,
Mm.
concerts. So
absolutely.
Mm.
people are coming back to normal, and I hope that things get better in a couple of
Right.
months, and we all get back to normal as soon as we can. So
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'll just add one more thing. I mean, a situation like this is always good for everything. It's a check. It's a check. It's like,
yeah,
Right.
if you fall sick, then you know that what not to do next.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Like
this has
Yeah.
helped us.
out of
Yeah.
100 people doing, like, let's say, a lot of bad things, some people will not be able to sustain. They will get out the bad things. It's like, taking the weed out and throwing it,
Yeah.
and the good
Yeah.
ones will stay. If you're talented, if you're good, you are doing well, you will stay. So it's like,
Sure.
it's a check, kind of.
Sure.
very
Instead
Sure.
of
true.
having a crowd doing, like, 1,000 people doing 1,000 things, let 10 good people do good things
Right.
in terms
Right.
of
Right.
music.
Yep.
So yeah,
I
Absolutely.
think I think according to me, any deserving artist
yeah,
is bound to get work, and he's
absolutely.
bound to do something uh,
You just
in,
have
in
to be
in this
at it.
field.
That's it. I mean,
Yes,
You've got
yeah.
to
yes,
be
I
at
think.
it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
Patience.
Yeah. In
absolutely.
a
And
nutshell, you have to be patient. You have to be at it, and you have to keep honing your talent and keep practicing and keep getting better and
Yeah,
better. So that, because I think the competition was always there, whether we had a pandemic or not.
Yeah,
Uh,
it
absolutely.
was
but
always, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Before we
and
end this session, sorry, Sunita, please go ahead.
yeah, so
You want to
like,
say
no,
something?
no, no, just resonating what both Kalyan and Ojas said, that and like he said a very beautiful thing philosophically. It's a cycle, but on the other side, if a very practical thing for newer or younger artists would be that we know that the virtual medium is here to stay. As much as the live scene has opened up. I just got to news that one of my co-artists is going to play at a wedding on the 31st of October. So great,
Mm-hmm.
weddings are being organized, live shows are being organized. That virtual is here to stay. And from
Yeah.
the way I burnt my fingers, I would say that ensure that you have a nice toolkit and a nice package of recorded stuff, no matter whether you're a newcomer or you've started off, so that, and the power of the recording medium and the virtual medium is so great that some countries that I have not traveled earlier, I can even perform for now. So that, and the second thing is the
Right.
attitude of people. The attitude of people. My humble, for people like you all, so many who are music makers, is that art has to have a value. As much as good artists will survive, let the public, the entities, movers and shakers not take advantage of artists. Like Kalyan said, Rhys said, you need a song everywhere. You need an artist to play everywhere. As much as we artists
Yeah.
are trying to do fundraisers for the folk artists who are languishing, everyone across the board has to think about
Right.
artists with a value. And
Absolutely.
Right.
I think at times we artists are being taken for granted in this pandemic, are being shortchanged in this pandemic. And if this continues, that's a larger malaise than what content we're putting out there and how we're earning the revenue. Let art have some value. Let all of us stand up for value towards what we're doing. And that's what I think will
Right.
get the revenue
Right.
sorted.
Right. No, in fact, I also, on something like this, Palash has started a petition with regards to supporting indie talent and in the independent space, basically. And it's called hashtag India for Indie. And we've also actually joined hands to support him. But I think that's true because, just as Kalyan was saying, there's music in every occasion it's just sad that the government thinks that it's a non-essential. I mean, just think of not having all of this, and no entertainment, no music, and
Yeah.
I don't know how any one of us will survive. So before we end this session,
Yeah.
I always end it with asking my guests, what does make it myself mean to you? So, we could go. I'd like Rhys to start, actually. He's been silent for quite a while.
Hey man, silence is golden. All lies. No, no, no. I'm kidding. Well, I think um, I like to have a good support system, and I don't, I think over the course of the last 7-8 months or so, and these things can change, different intervals in time. I'm very grateful for the people that I have around me. To be very honest, I wouldn't be where I am or where I want to go without them. So, um, they are my parents, of course, and of some of my close friends, even musicians that I would take classes from during the lockdown. If I felt like the need to study bass, then I studied for 3 months and I got into it and I went into something else. But through all of that, I was in constant contact with them, and that really helped me a lot. And it's not just related to music. I think anything else that's even an extension of music is helped so much with a good support
Right,
system. um,
right.
and I think, to honestly speaking, at the end of the day, I want to do this for someone also. Like Kalyan said, like Ojas also said, you sort of want to play for someone. And I think if you can communicate that with them and you feel the happiness as a result of that, at least for me right now, that's what I understand. I'm kind of happy with that, and I like that. And to do it with people that you love doing it with also on stage, that's the other part of it, which makes it
Yeah,
even more joyous. But all that honestly stems from only having a good support system. So
Absolutely.
I can share that with other people. I think that's actually the pinnacle for me, and that you can live every day in different ways also, not just with music. If you're
mm,
cooking in the kitchen, and if like Ojas and I in the kitchen together, and we happen to make a banging meal together, I think that's something where you can enjoy the joy in that. And
right.
even though, I mean, I'm just going to be rambling on here, but essentially, good support system. Yeah.
Okay, so if I
Wonderful.
was to ask you in one line, make it myself is, what would you say?
Me?
Yeah?
You asking me? Oh, sorry. No, I didn't mean
Yes.
me. Um, I think listen more.
Okay,
Keep your ears open. Keep your eyes open. I think.
okay. All
Um,
right. Fair enough. Sunita, what does make it myself mean to you?
If you have no one to walk with you, you've got to walk alone. যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে.
Wow, very nice.
That's make it myself for me.
Lovely. Ojas, what does make it myself for you?
I think it's focus, yeah, faith, trust in yourself. That leads to everything. Self confidence.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I can feel right now.
Superb. And Kalyan, I think you definitely made it yourself, but how does make it
Yeah.
myself feel for you?
Make it myself is being honest to what you do and make the best of music that you can make, or
Wonderful.
assist the artist that you tour with. Make a singer sound beautiful with your playing. You make
Right.
someone sound great. You make everyone happy. I make myself
Right.
happy. If I can make some money also in the process, I don't mind. So that's what
How
Absolutely.
I
lovely,
want. Yeah,
how
Absolutely.
lovely is that?
I want to make it. Yeah, that's what I want to make. Make
Yeah.
someone like smile, happy with the music we produce, and I hope we can continue doing whether there's a pandemic or not. You know, we've been patient enough to learn the art that we've been learning all these years and practicing. We've been patient
Absolutely.
enough to get to where we are. So why not few more months and a little more time?
True. True.
That's what I
Yeah,
think. I want
absolutely.
to. Yeah, I would like to make myself be a little more positive and honest about
Right.
everything. And
mhm.
you know,
Right. Yeah, so I think basically, I mean, if I was to sum up today's session, definitely being an instrumental musician has a lot of plus points. You're adding so much to a song, you're adding so much to the music in from a universal perspective. But along with that, you need to be honest about your art, you need to be committed, you need to learn, you need to be patient, and especially in times like this where you possibly are not able to really generate revenue the way you would have done in the good old days.
Yeah.
Don't give up, stick at it
Yeah, it'll
because
happen.
hard work does, yeah, it does result. So I would also just want to mention some of the people who have commented here just to read out a few messages.
Nice.
Oh,
So there, yeah, so we have the School of Bass. Somebody from the School of Bass says Kalyan's mustache looks awesome. So that is one comment we've got. And the same person also said lovely advice, keeping audience in mind and being versatile and a constant learner. Ameya Nayak on Facebook has said, good session, guys. All art has a price and we have to be firm about it. All right, great. We'll follow that, Ameya. I feel absolutely honored. Thank you so much for being part of the session. I think it was much longer than you guys would have planned, but I had a great time. So thank you so much,
Thank
and
you.
we'll catch up again
Thank you,
soon.
Samina.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
Thank
Thank
you
you,
Samina.
so much,
guys.
Thanks,
Samina.
Bye.
guys.
Thank you, everyone. So good to
So
connect
good to
with you
see
Bye.
you.
all.
Same here.
Good
Bye,
night.
Ojas.
Take care.
Bye,
All
Stay
right.
Kalyan.
well.
Good night.
Hey, next
Bye,
time you
Good
guys
night.
book
Sunita.
and call me.
Ah,
Yep.
next
No,
time
we
you're
are
Bye.
booking,
booking
you call us.
personally now.
You call
Yeah.
us.
Take
Okay.
care. See you.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.